Hey, welcome to the Student Physical Therapist. Nick reached out to me, maybe 2 months ago, and he had a few questions about cash-based physical therapy. So I said we can hop on and we can chat about a few things. So a little bit about me outside the Student Physical Therapist. I'm the owner of Heafner Health Physical Therapy, which is a cash-based practice in Boulder, Colorado. And right now I'm treating somewhere between 30 to 35 patients per week. So a decent single practitioner cash-based PT practice. So what about you, Nick?
Yeah, so I graduated 2012, and right now I'm working in a corporate PT job. And the reason I reached out to Jim was because he has some experience in the cash-based PT model. And I'm kind of just in my initial journey trying to get into that and transition from the corporate world into the cash-based model.
I think it's a good route to go. I mean, I went, as we've talked about previously, I went from working at a Concentra, so big occupational medicine practice, seeing almost 20 patients per day, to now seeing somewhere between like 7 to 9 patients per day. And it's all one-on-one, and the majority of those are hour-long visits. So it's good. I mean, this is definitely, if you would ask me if I'd ever turn back or could I ever see myself not doing this, then there's no way. I could never go back to the standard kind of corporate version of this. But
Yeah, I couldn't imagine going backwards.
yeah, I know. But I think the biggest thing from working in at a big corporate setting, I'm not sure how busy you are,
Mm.
but if it just gives you perspective. So, so I wouldn't take back any of that time, but like it taught me how to be really busy. It taught me how to be efficient. And then it also kind of guided me towards certain things that I didn't want to have anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've learned a lot being there, and I'm super grateful for that. I think it's just time now that I've got that experience to start doing my own thing and trying to
That's
see how that
awesome.
works out.
All right. So you're based, you said about an hour outside of Chicago.
Yes.
Okay. So how's the market there? Not just
Yeah,
for physical therapy. Is it, do you think people would pay out of their insurance for physical therapy?
yeah, absolutely. So there's a couple places around where I'm at that I'm kind of interested in. One being kind of the St. Charles, Illinois area, and Naperville area. Naperville, 100,000 plus population, which I think would be ideal. And then St. Charles, Geneva, which is maybe a 30 to 40,000 person town. But yeah, there's some really nice kind of areas around that I think would be very suitable for that sort of niche market.
And is there anyone else doing cash based near like where you're thinking about setting up shop?
So I found one practitioner, and I kind of was just emailing him back and forth. He actually works out of his house. So he's got a
Okay.
small little room inside of his house, but I haven't found very many that actually work inside of the gym setting or kind of do similar to what you're doing specifically.
Did that person say how busy they were?
Yeah, he told me he probably sees maybe 4 or 5 people a day. So it seems like a very small sort of niche thing, but it's inside of his house. So I imagine his overhead's pretty darn low.
Yeah, almost zero.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, definitely. And I think I would try to start personally. Like I know we both follow like Aaron LeBauer's are the big Facebook group, and there's plenty of people who work out of their house, which is great. But I think it's hard to draw, at least to draw more traffic. I think you need to be somewhere else. So do you want to go through? I know you prepared 4 different questions. I've looked over those a little bit. Do you want to start going through those?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to. So the first one I had, and this was sort of something I've been thinking about for a while, and it was sort of, the idea of fear of starting your own thing. And I've kind of been thinking about that. I was just curious what your mindset was when you went to go approach this, because I think for me, it's hard to just make that leap, and say, okay, I'm going to go out there and do my own thing. And I have bills to worry about and things like that. And I was just curious what your mentality was starting off with that, if you had fears or reservations about kind of starting your own practice.
There's fears they're definitely present, and it was more so for me personally. I knew that I would not put myself in a position where I wasn't making any money. So my last 2 to 2.5 months, or probably longer than that even, prior to quitting my corporate job before, I had done everything to basically set up my own practice. And I know it's tough with non-competes. Like you can't really start treating people probably until you quit your job. But so I had to put everything in place for about, really 2.5 months before is when I was ironing everything out. And then right about 2 or 3 weeks before I quit my job is when I started looking for other sources of income too. So for me personally, I worked in the home health industry, probably seeing somewhere between like 7 to 10 patients per week. And I did that for about the first year.
Hmm.
What's nice about home health is that there's no, like, you create the hours yourself. So if I was working at a different outpatient orthopedic clinic, one, I was worried about non-compete things, but then two, you still have to be like present there. So with home health, I can kind of block off a few hours here and there, but there's also flexibility within those hours.
Right. I think that's super interesting because I was thinking about the idea of, okay, where would I be, if I was working in that corporate job in an outpatient ortho setting? Because there's definitely some, like you said, the non-compete type idea. So I'd have to be so far outside of that. And then I almost wonder if that's like a gray area too, like seeing patients on the side, how a company you're working for would handle that or things of that nature.
Yeah, and I really try to be respectful of other businesses, and I didn't even want to have to cross that of, if they ask what else I'm doing, I don't want to have to lie about how I have my own practice that's maybe 2 miles away or something.
Right.
So yeah, home health was a great additional fit for me. So that was one. And then I'm not sure what you do outside of physical therapy, but other sources of income, like I make some money off the student physical therapist. And then we first met from the Optum OCS program.
Mm-hmm.
So different things like that. Those are just other streams of income. So I'm not sure how that fits into your life, but I notice having other sources, bringing some money in as you're starting the cash practice is important. It's definitely.
Right.
So, but yeah, I had fears around it, but I knew, and I imagine you're getting towards the similar place, that like, I was getting very frustrated with the current day-to-day routine. And so there was just no turning back. So it's kind of like the fears were present, but we're going to push through those.
Absolutely. And like from a logical perspective, it's like I know that and I'm not saying it wouldn't work out, but if something didn't work out, I know I could easily get a job somewhere else or go pick something up on the side. Like, so it's really an unfounded fear. It's just like in my head, it's just kind of sitting there, kind of permeating, and I'm trying to just get past that
Oh,
point.
completely. And even, I mean, there's fears. While it doesn't take a ton of money to start a cash practice, it still is an investment of a few $1,000s. So there's going to be just a natural fears around putting that initial money up front. So that's why I would recommend having some source of income, just so you don't feel like you're getting swamped on the side.
Yeah, and when you started your cash-based practice, how much equipment did you go with? Did you go with the bare minimum? Did you really just try and?
Oh man, bare minimum. Yeah, where I had a table, I bought a desk for my clinic, and then I had like a Swiss ball, like a big ball to do some exercises on, a few bands, and a few kettlebells, and like a weight vest. So it's not, and you don't really need more, because a lot of stuff that we do can be accomplished at least like with most calisthenic or body weight type movements. So and then you can give them the education of what they need to do outside of there if they're, let's say, doing a bunch of weight training or something.
Right, and then you of course have access to all the stuff in the gym too. So it's
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, and
Okay.
that's like the biggest perk of being in the gym, which I'm sure we'll get to later.
Yeah, and that actually, I was going to say that kind of leads me to the next question, which was kind of, have you always had like a room for your practice, your own specific space? Because I've talked to a few people just kind of emailing back and forth, and they've offered for me to just work in like an open area and not necessarily have a dedicated space. And I was just curious what your thoughts were on that.
Oh, I'm huge on having the room. And I don't know if that is maybe just a mindset thing that I would have to get over.
Mm-hmm.
But I do know that people come to me, we both know how emotional pain can be too. And people come to me, and like, especially chronic persistent pain, there's an emotional piece to it. And it's hard for them to really share that emotional piece if someone's like clanking weights right next to them.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure exactly if that's what it would be, but I do know like the privacy piece of it is very important to me, because that allows me to, I think, connect with patients on a deeper level. And it's like, my current clinic has windows there where people can walk by and like see what's going on, but at least it's quiet enough where they feel like it's a one-on-one setting.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't imagine really not having the ability to go do your own like private room or something like that. Some people had mentioned that as a possibility, and I didn't know if that could work or not. That didn't really jive very well with me. So
That's a good question though, because after I read it the first time, I was thinking about if you could just even be like, yeah, if it's offset to the corner, just like in an open space that's blocked off, and it could work, but maybe it just would change kind of what your brand is or what you're representing. So it definitely could work. So I just think for me personally, and the style that I take of really getting down to what that person needs, um, for me, it would not work just the way I do my interviews.
Yeah, absolutely. And you did your fellowship train, correct?
I've done all the didactic coursework, but I
Okay.
haven't done all the mentoring hours for the manual therapy fellowship.
I gotcha. So I just assumed you had a very heavy manual, or at least some aspect of manual within your treatment too. So having a private area would obviously bode
I
well
know, I
for
think yeah, definitely. I agree. And even with the windows at my current space, like people can see in and they're like, oh, it would be nice to have what some of my patients tell me is that it would be nice to have like curtains going up and down
it.
or
Hmm.
shutters. And I was like, yeah, I agree with that. But either way, I haven't done that yet. But it's like, I think that privacy piece you'll find that that could be a barrier for certain people.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the last thing you want to have is some sort of barrier to treat a patient that comes in to see you specifically, because they.
Yeah. Yeah, completely.
Okay, and then I was just curious too because we were kind of talking about word of mouth, and you said that that was probably your biggest way to get patient referrals and things of that nature. So I was just considering what would you think would be the keys to success to word of mouth and getting good patient referrals and that sort of thing.
Well, the majority of my referrals come from previous patients. So the and they come in most likely because of success with the word of mouth of just telling someone the success of the treatment. So I think being a great therapist is the step one to help improve word of mouth. But then also like the idea of being in a gym setting for me was also huge because just the opportunity for word of mouth goes way up. So if there is where I was located the first year, there was only 100 members that belonged to that studio, and then I changed clinic locations, and I'm now in a gym that has 1,500 members, and there's just a sheer strength in numbers of people going by your door. So uh, someone in the gym hears about it, and then they have a good result, so then they tell their friend who tells their friend. So what's nice is that 2 years out now, the word of mouth is pretty good for the most part, where I don't have to do much outside marketing anymore.
Hmm.
Hmm. So for getting good patient results is huge. I think simple things based on where your location's at, simple marketing strategies can be great for getting people in the door initially. We talked on the phone before about how I did that, like 20 for 20 is what I called it. It's kind of
Yeah.
like a discovery session, but someone can come in for $20. They spend 20 minutes with me. I take them through some examination. Probably I'm going to do some treatment, just something to get them feeling better. And and then in their eyes, it's only a $20 treatment. But then also it kind of gives them. I think the biggest hesitation for some people early on is the hesitation of like, can they trust the other person? So that was huge for me. Is that like, let's get them in. Let's see, make sure that they can buy into the treatment, and
Mhm.
then sell them on the actual benefits of it. But because you need to get people in before you can actually have word of mouth to spread. So
Right. It,
but yeah, with the word of mouth piece, just really always, I would say, customer satisfaction is kind of like, I know that word is like overused again and again, but like really putting the patient first is a great example of how I've done that in the past. I think at least, and maybe this has taken it too far, but I've had I think two people in the last 2 years who like weren't fully satisfied with the treatment. And the first person, they bought a package of 5 visits. And after the first visit, they said they were having more pain. They wanted to go get an MRI and they wanted a refund for their package, which I typically don't do. But instead of just giving her a refund for the remaining 4 visits, I said, hey, I'm really sorry about the inconvenience. I actually comped the first session, even though that was a use of my time. But I wanted that person to be fully happy. I didn't want to give them any reason to write a negative review, or at least at the end of the day, I can feel like I gave them everything back. So
yeah, that's phenomenal. Because I mean, like you said, the word of mouth is how you get all your patients, and you obviously don't want any kind of negativity kind of going around there. So it sounds like do anything you could to kind of
try
prevent
not
that.
to alleviate. And some
Yeah.
people, I'm sure, would say that might be too far, where I provided a service and it just was a little different. So I should have kept some of that.
Hmm.
But like in my mind and with this particular patient, I just felt like giving it all back and letting it rest at that was the best way to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And along those same lines, I know you had mentioned like, being visible in the gym and kind of having a presence there. When you first started and maybe you didn't have as many patients on a daily basis, were you, did you have signs up on the door? Were you just hanging out, talking to members, just kind of interacting with people, starting conversations?
Mainly actually working out upstairs, I would talk to people up in the gym. And because I'm really bad at, I can't like stand by the front desk and just say hi to people. Like I do a terrible job in that sort of marketing setting, which is why like I never do well at different festivals and things like that, where I have to just blindly talk. Like it's almost like a sales pitch.
Hmm.
But what worked really well for me is that in this current gym that I'm in, which is an amazing place, there's probably 20 to 25 trainers there. And I got to know the trainers really well, and the trainers work with a bunch of different people. So let's say the trainer is working out with Sally, and like right away, so he's like, "Hey, have you met Jim? He's right. He's the physical therapist downstairs. He's helped another one of my clients that had knee pain." So it was almost like that extension of working through the trainers almost was a great way to, again, like for the word of mouth piece.
Yeah, that's perfect. So, I mean, if you have 25 people who, are working with, maybe 5, 10 people a day or something like that, personal training, you've now probably extended out your reach and people you can kind of interact with. So
Oh,
that's
yeah.
awesome.
And also, like we were new to Boulder when we moved out here. And then being in the gym too has kind of like brought a sense of community, definitely, where like if I'll go upstairs at the place where my clinic is based out of now, and it'll be like I know every third person there. So it's like I'm always having conversations with people. And it's a great simple way to build a brand that's like not in a salesy way.
And you said that gym has about 1,500 members or so.
I think so. Like
Okay.
I know it's over 1,000, like yeah, somewhere around 1,500.
Okay. And I know you said the one before had maybe 100 or something. So do you think maybe something over like 1,000 would be like a good, reasonable range of a gym size to target?
Hmm.
I don't know if that really matters all
Yeah, I'm
that
not sure if
much,
that
but
matters. I think really what mattered more for me was the first place that I was in a bar studio, and like so a bar workout. It's like a dancers based style of working out, and I just couldn't. I didn't feel as comfortable doing the workouts myself, and I really couldn't relate quite as much. So the new place is in a gym that has all different types of people that come in and work out. So they have like your standard like spin classes, but then also just general like weight training people. And then that's much more. I just felt like I could relate to those people a little bit easier. And I was also felt really comfortable going upstairs and enjoying my own workout. So it was a natural fit.
yeah, that makes sense. And the last one I had was kind of just talking about sort of your ideal location, where you think a gym like that or your practice would thrive. I know you kind of touched on it a little bit, but we talked about maybe doing like a CrossFit type style gym. I know you said the bar didn't work out as much, and then kind of trying to form that kind of symbiotic relationship with the gym owners because they already have some things going on in there, whether that's personal training or things of that nature. So kind of figuring all that how that works with physical therapy.
What I would recommend is that if you are trying to get into a gym setting, being a member there is huge because that shows that you've kind of already invested in that community. Now, with mine in particular, I was a member, I was kind of a business partner that became a member, and then I brought my clinic over there 6 months afterwards. But what I would say is whenever you're going to pitch yourself to that gym, have a list of things that you would like, so how they can benefit you, but then also have a equally long list of ways that you can benefit them. One and on my list of how I could benefit the gym is that every new person that comes in to join, they could have a free musculoskeletal screening from me. And we actually, I don't do that on every person, but like if they want that service, I'll gladly spend 20 or 30 minutes to just take them through a general screening. That way it allows me to meet that person or maybe meet a whole family of people. And then if an injury happens, then I'm like the first person they think of.
So would you do like an FMS or something like that, or
Yeah, it would be. I
okay,
call it like I do a version of the FMS, kind of like broken down version of it. And I also take them through like just a joint by joint mobility screening to see how everything's going.
Mhm.
That's just a quick hands-on assessment. It usually takes 20 minutes for that whole thing, but then I can just kind of give them one or two things to work on based on where any impairments are at. But more importantly, I just spent 20 minutes getting to know someone. So then I'll say their knee does act up in the first month. They can just walk down there and set up an appointment. So that was a good perk. I think having the convenience piece is huge if you can market yourself as being more convenient for their members who get injured. The majority of them, if it's a good owner, they're going to want someone they're going to want like an injury prevention an injury management specialist as close as possible. So there was my person actually had no hesitation, the owner of my gym.
Yeah, I've talked to a couple owners. I mean, I haven't talked to very many, but a few of them were almost apprehensive about doing physical. They're having a PT in there. I don't know if they just thought it would kind of cannibalize what they're doing in terms of personal training or something like that. But it seemed like a couple of them didn't really see how that would work out in terms of both people being able to benefit from the situation. So.
I will definitely just make a note or let that owner know that you won't be doing any personal training sessions.
Mhm.
And so it's simply like you're there to help with people who are experiencing pain. And so it's a pain or they just want more of a preventative screening. But right as you get them better, then you can start working them back into their gym routine. So let's say the gym owner is making profit off of having personal trainers there. Well, if their people aren't healthy, then they're going to be doing less personal training sessions or they'll be less present at the gym. So it's like almost like you can help them get back to the personal training and have them more active in the gym. And the convenience piece is huge. I've had people who would go to a physical therapist 10 minutes down the road beforehand and they say, well, I mean, you're here. It can't get easier than this. So that's another huge perk.
Yeah, I mean, that makes perfect sense because they're already going to be in the gym at that time. Maybe they're going there a few times a week and it's like, oh, I'll just pop in the gym, get my workout on, and then go see Jim, get some therapy, and then kind of head out. You know, you can't really make it any more convenient for people to be inside a gym that they go to on a frequent basis.
And it's nice when you get people like closer to the discharge phase, then you can walk them upstairs and say, okay, you're using these machines. This is something that you should look out for. I mean, it really is like a natural progression of where you want people to go.
That's very cool. Do you ever come up to the personal trainers and kind of introduce them and say, hey, you know, here's a couple patients that are getting better, or like maybe that here's some trainers that might be able to work with you on your future kind of?
Yeah, definitely. Now, the majority of my people, I would say like 60% probably come from personal trainers. But what's really nice is that now I have that network. And this, I mean, that really just like, that's like the circle of life for the referral process, because then I can bring someone new in and introduce them to a trainer who I think is a good fit. And then they see that I'm bringing them members, I'm bringing them clientele. And so what's nice also about having, or a good way that you can market yourself to an owner, is that you're going to bring new members into the gym. So like I think probably 10 people have joined the current gym that I'm at, and they bought like a year-long membership. So it's also additional revenue and additional profit for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, again, which makes sense to me. I just was having trouble kind of conveying that when they had sent that email, because it just, I couldn't see how that wouldn't be like a symbiotic relationship. Like you said, if someone's injured, they're probably not going to do what they want to do in the gym. You help them get back to being better, or maybe even they become a member or something like that. And I just thought that I couldn't see how an owner would ever be against having a therapist in the gym in that fashion.
I think it's not even, I don't want to call it a closed mindset, but they might just like that. It's still kind of a foreign model, or just they haven't even thought about that option. So that change just appears scary at first. And that's why, like, next time you go in and meet one, have a list of like 4 or 5 ways that you can help them, 4 or 5 ways that they can help you. And then you can really show like how it can be mutually beneficial.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea.
Because a lot of times they think about the liability and the cost aspect of it first. It doesn't cost them. I mean, they make money on rent. So I imagine it's the liability piece. So if you can just show them right away that, okay, I'm going to have my own insurance. The liability is not really there, but more importantly, this is how I can add value.
Right. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. In terms of like, the gym you're at, are you at a 24-hour gym? I mean, is it open all the time or is it limited hours?
It's limited hours, so it's open from 5 a.m. to like 10 p.m.
Okay.
It's pretty good hours still.
Yeah, I'm just curious because there's a bunch of 24-hour gyms around here, and I was, wondering if that would be. I mean, if you're open 5 a.m. to 10 p.m., that's probably the only hours people are going to come in anyway. But some of
Yeah,
some of the people want to come in a little after work or before work or whatever, and I figured that would be a nice benefit to have in the longer term, like hours for the gym.
it would be. And I'm still like, I'm pulling kind of crazy hours because some days I'll start at 6 a.m. and I'll go till 6 p.m. I never work before that or after that.
Mhm.
But I don't work those whole times in between. So what's nice is that if I have an hour break, I can just go right upstairs and work out and also kind of do some marketing up there. Or it's a pretty easy fit in my mind. But yeah,
Yeah,
it's been great. You work a
yeah.
lot. You work a lot up front, but
That's the dream right there. Is I just walk upstairs and just get in a workout and then go back down and see a patient or something like that, and you're
it's
just like
incredible.
right there. Like how could you not get in shape when you're in a gym setting like that all day?
I really think it's ideal because that way, I mean, and they have the full like locker room and shower and everything. It's so easy just to knock it all out.
Right.
Hmm. All right. Well, cool. Thank you for hopping on today. And I hope that answers your questions. And I hope it answers, if anyone else has questions, feel free to chime in and put comments on this post. So, all righty.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me, Jim. Really appreciate your time.
Yeah, absolutely. See you, Nick.
See ya.